Okay. We'll wait just a couple moments here, but I'll just kind of explain what I just said a second ago about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk a little bit about breaking words apart and kind of what the parts on different parts of words, what little sections mean, because sometimes some speakers don't like to get into breaking words apart with folks because they think that somehow they'll confuse the actual meaning for certain words, but most of the time it just really gets people kind of geeked up and they really start to appreciate and understand words on a deeper level when you kind of start breaking them apart. And like I was saying just a moment ago before we started the recording, is if you can understand the parts of the words, you can hear a word that you've never heard in your entire life, and it should be no problem understanding it. Let me turn my my lights on real quick in here. There we go. A little bit better. Okay. Man, because that's the thing about our language. Our language is so descriptive in nature anyway. I mean, you can have a person that can have a completely different word for something like TV or refrigerators, especially with some of these modern concepts. You know, a lot of times you'll have different words that'll come up in different communities. You know, sometimes a word gets more accepted and it kind of becomes kind of the mainstay word, but occasionally it's not that way. Occasionally you'll have, maybe they say it this way over here, mesnatuk maybe for a TV versus wabnotokshigan, or computer. I've heard like 2 or 3 different ways to say computer, but because they're very descriptive, because our language is so descriptive, it really doesn't matter. I mean, somebody could be talking about something that you'd never heard before, and you could figure out what they were talking about. Interesting little story. I guess it was a couple days ago. I had one of my students that's been learning the language for a while, and he was asking me if he could say like shigen shkamot. Shigen is like your hip, and shkamot is like a bag. And he was using that when talking about like a fanny pack. And I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense to me. Shigen shkamot, a hip bag. And I thought, you know, I never really thought of a word in our language for fanny pack. I'm not a big fanny pack wearer, but my mother-in-law is always wearing a fanny pack. But you know, shigen shkamot. But as soon as he said the words, I was like, I knew what he was talking about, because it's just so descriptive in nature. You know, you're talking about a bag that was on the hip, and I was like, yeah, okay, a fanny pack. So that's just an example of how, you know, understanding our language, understanding certain parts of words, particularly with verbs, you can really start to get a deeper understanding of what's going on when you start breaking them apart, like we're going to do here in just a minute. So we're going to start with bulk. So bulk by itself kind of means, it doesn't, I mean, you have to take these apart, but you can't just say bulk. It has to be attached to something else. So it's part of a bigger word, but like bulk means something is broken. And then beak is like something that's broken, but it's almost more like shattered. It's just broken to bits. It's almost like it's almost like unfixable, basically. It's all smashed up. So if I said like bokshka Egypt, when this chair is broke, I might be talking about maybe the arm fell off and I need to put the screw back in or something. Now, if the chair just like fell apart, then I would be saying like bikshka, it just fell apart. Bikshka Egypt, when that chair is broke, as in it's no way I'm going to fix it. I'm not real mechanically inclined, so it becomes bikshka pretty fast for me. If it's a few parts start falling off, I'm done. So Bokbadon is to break it to pieces. And that don at the end of that is indicating that's a thing that you're doing that to. So like I'm breaking it to pieces, basically, maybe snapping something apart. But when you see that ba in front of that don, that badon, it indicates that you're doing something with your hands, that your hands are actually the thing that's doing it. So it's like you're doing like that, you're snapping something, bokbadon. If I just said bokdon, then it wouldn't necessarily be anything with my hands. It would be just breaking something, but I could have just, you know, took my elbow to break it. I could have, I don't know, smashed across my head. However I wanted to break something without Now I'm not using my hands though. That's that badon. So bok badon. Bokna, to break something animate to pieces. Bokjane is to break one's nose. Now I could take this word bok and I could attach this to any number of body parts and create a verb, to break my hand, to break my forehead, to break my ear, to break my chin, to break my kneecap. I could do that with this word bok, and I could attach it. So Jane is how Josh is our word for nose, but in the verb form it changes to Jane. So bok Jane means he or she breaks their nose, bok Jane. So if I wanted to say I broke my nose, I would say Nagi bok Jane. I broke my nose, Nagi bok Jane. But if I want to say, for example, I broke a tooth, you could say Nagi bokni, but I broke a tooth. Or you could say boknake, or not boknake, boknake, broke my arm. Nagi boknake, broke my arm. And this next example here has that boknake, but it also has an extra part to it. It says boknakeshin, boknakeshin. And that would be the verb to fall and break one's arm. A lot of times our language is very, very descriptive in nature. So a lot of times we can be very precise when we're talking about like what happens, how it happened. Sometimes when it comes to translating the language, it becomes complicated for people a little bit, because even if somebody asks me a word in English and, and I know what they're talking about, sometimes I have to then ask them, well, what exactly do you mean? Because it'll change sometimes if you're talking about like they broke it while falling, they broke it, maybe they knocked it into something, they broke it, somebody punched them and it got broke. I mean, it can change, based on what happened. So boknukashin would be someone fell and broke one's arm. Now, understanding these parts like this, that shin indicates to fall or to lie. Not lying, like not telling the truth, but like lying down. So like if I said like menoshin, it'd be like lying comfortably. But it could also mean like falling in an okay way, like the way like a stunt man learns to fall, and they fall in a very like controlled way, basically, menoshin. So boknukeshin, to fall and break one's arm. I could replace that nukke, which means arm, put jane in there, say bok jane shin. He fell and broke his nose. I could say bok shigane shin. He fell and broke his hip. I could say bok kadeshin. He fell and broke his leg. Kat being leg, so bok kadeshin. And so again, by understanding some of these parts, you can use them and change them and make them very specific. And that's one place where understanding, again, some of these parts and pieces can make it easier for you to be real descriptive in what you're talking about. So bokshka just means it's broke. We also use this as kind of a slang for being broke, like choshonya, no money. Bokshka, I'm broke. But literally it means it's broke. So again, we could be talking about a chair, we could be talking about a table, whatever, some object that's broke. It's broke. Bokshka or bokshkam get. Bokwineche, to break one's hand. Bokwineche. Nech being your hand. Bokwineche, break one's hand. Let me move this little deal to the side so it's not in the way. And actually, I need to move the next. Can you even see that slide, guys? I think I'm looking at the next slide, and I don't even know if I don't know if I pushed it over. I think it was showing up on my preview over here, and it wasn't showing up on you guys' screen. Oops. Did you see the slide before?
It was just little on the side.
Okay, you saw this little in the corner, little.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my fault. I need to make sure that I bring it to the other side. My bad. But at least that's good. So otherwise you're like, what is he talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Something broke. Like, so bokshka, it's broke. Bokadebna, to break someone's leg with your hand. So here you got bok, which means break. Kat, or in this sense, it's kade, is your leg. And then that bana is to do something with your hands, but the na indicates you're doing something to someone. So you're doing something with your hands. So you broke someone's leg with your hand. Someone did. That whole thing is inside of there. Bodwewadmimwen15. And again, you could trade this out. You could say you broke somebody's nose with your hand. You could say Bodwewadmimwen15. You could say, if you want to take it a bit further and you want to say maybe you shattered their nose, you could change it from bulk to beak. You could say, beak kadebna. I shattered someone's leg with my hand. And that's the same verb you would use if you were talking about doing it to yourself too. So you could be like, I shattered my leg with my hand. I mean, I'm not sure how you do that, but maybe with a hammer or something. I don't know. But you're using your hand. Your hand is involved in it. Bulk kadebna. Bodwewaneche, again, is to break one's hand. Bodwewaneche. And the same as that one up here, that to fall and break one's arm. You could just say, break your arm is broke. You could say, Naboknake, my arm is broke. Naboknake. You don't have to have that shun on there, but if you were trying to describe how you broke it when you fell, you could say, Nagi boknake shun. I fell and broke my arm. Nagi boknake shun. So really that's one word in Potawatomi, but it's an entire sentence or entire thought in English. Nagi boknake shun. I fell and broke my leg, or not leg, my arm, sorry. I fell and broke my arm. So that's an entire thought in the language. But again, by understanding these parts, it really does help. Bikshka means it's broken. Again, it's like shattered. It's almost like unfixable. It's something that's just like if you sat in the chair and then the chair just completely fell apart, that would be like bikshka. It's broken to pieces. When I think of that, I sometimes think of like a wooden chair, how it could just splinter and be like, because if a chair that's wooden splinters, it's pretty much done for. You're not going to like glue it back together and whatnot. It's done. Bikshka, broken to pieces. Bokshkan is to break it with one's foot or hand. That shkan at the end is telling you that you're doing that with your, I said foot or hand. I should have said, foot or body is what I meant to say there. Skena. It's not hands, foot or body. So it's bokshkan. So you broke it. Maybe you kicked it. Maybe you kicked the door. Bokshkan. Nagi bokshkani squadem. I broke the door. I kicked it. I kicked it and I broke it. Nagi bokshkani squadem. I broke the door with my foot. Or maybe you put your shoulder into something like you really threw your body into it. Nagi bokshkan. I broke it with with your foot or with your body. I didn't mean to say hand right there. Bikshkan, foot or your body. Bikshkan. So now it's like just completely. Whoa, what happened there? Where am I? Are we still there? Like the video disappeared. The people's. Hello.
I can see your screen, but I can't see you.
Yeah, the camera just disappeared on me. Hold on. I think I might have hit it with my foot. That's what it is. Time out. I did that one other time. Let me see if I can find what happened to it here. Scan. Well, let's see. Where is it at? Show taskbar. No, display settings. No one in the slideshow. Well, we'll end it for. Well, let's see. I'm going to try to end it and find my where it's at in this little deal here. There we go. Meeting controls. It's my fault. I think I hit it with my knee. Dang it. Come on. Where is it? Where did it go? There it is. Okay.
You're back.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I hit it with my knee and I disconnected. I just looked up and all of a sudden I was gone and I was like, okay, well, that's unfortunate. Okay, so that's enough about broken though. Let's get to another word there. So bean indicates clean and ween indicates something that's dirty, ween. So if you say bin nagwaze, he or she looks clean. Bin nagwaze. Win nagwaze, he or she looks dirty. Win nagwaze. That nagwaze part at the end indicates the way that someone looks. They look a certain way, that nagwaze. So you could actually have other words attached to that. You could say like chio nagwaze, somebody's like homely or kind of ugly looking. But you can put that nagwaze on the back. You say, Mano wab managwaze, he or she looks beautiful. Mano wab managwaze. So you can attach other things to that nagwaze, but Bin nagwaze, he or she looks clean. Win nagwaze, he or she looks dirty. And then for it looks dirty, win nagwet. Win nagwet. Maybe you're talking about the house. Maybe you're talking about the table. Metzana, wegwindek, win nagwaz, whatever looks dirty. So win nagwet, win nagwet, it looks dirty. Bin nagwet, it looks clean. Bin nagwet. Bean suck is a clean floor. Bean suck. And we're going to go down a couple and jump a couple down here to chest suck, just means like the floor. Chest suck. And then ween suck would be like a dirty floor. So bean suck, clean floor. Ween suck, a dirty floor. Chest suck is the floor. And that mache really is talking about like almost like a cleared off area is what it's really talking about. It's like so it's like a place where things are cleared off. It's cleared off area. It's kind of what that word for floor is kind of literally saying. Chest suck. But then ween suck again is dirty. Bean suck is clean. Bean achmo is to apologize to somebody, to kind of clean things up, to kind of make it right. Bean achmo. And that achmo is indicating that you're talking about something or you're saying something. That mo also part indicates kind of like communicating, like talking. If you say Anishinaabe mo or Anishinaabe mo, talking Indian, or Bodwewadmimwen, talking Potawatomi, that mo. If you want to say talking French, you would say Wim Togoji mo, talking French. So that mo kind of is part of that indication of like communication or speaking, if you will. But the achmo is almost like telling, like kind of recounting something. So bin achmo, bin de a. He or she has a clean or pure heart. Bin de a. So de is your heart. De, just like de wegen is a drum, the sound of that heartbeat. De wegen, that way indicates like a sound. That gun indicates like a thing. So de wegen is the sound of that heartbeat, or de men is a strawberry. That men being a berry or seed, and when you cut it in half, it looks like a heart. So it's a heartberry. De men. But bin dea, he or she has a pure or clean heart. Bin dea. Bin konye, he or she is wearing clean clothes. That's always a plus, especially if you have kids, because kids like to just put the same thing back on and try to embarrass you by going to school. So bin konye, he or she is wearing clean clothes. Bin konye. So if you want to say he or she is wearing dirty clothes, you would say win konye. But that konye also, understand that konye indicates clothing. If you say like mishko konye, be wearing red, skeb konye, wearing green. In fact, the word that we use for the priests, we call them makde konyet, and that comes from that mkade for black, but it's like the one who wears black, makde konyet. But again, it's got that konye indicating what they're wearing. You can say zag konye, wearing something scary or terrifying, like if you're talking about maybe somebody who's like dressing up for like Halloween or something, zag konye. But again, understanding these parts of these words really can open your mind to a lot of really kind of amazing things in a way. So bin konye, wearing clean clothes. Bin zadeh, having clean feet. Bin zadeh. It's always nice when your feet are clean, especially if you have to take your shoes off somewhere. Bin zadeh. He or she has clean feet. Bin zadeh. If you want to say he or she has dirty feet, you can say Wednesday, Wednesday. So Beanzadeh, he or she has clean feet. Wednesday, he or she has dirty feet. You know, and you might have to say, bin don, gezedin, go clean your feet. Bin don gezedin, bawamshe, jipta bien iba, genwak jipta bun. Go clean your feet off before you sit on the couch. You know, if you got Wednesday, dirty feet, Wednesday. Winnaje, he or she has dirty hands. Winnache, he or she has dirty hands. Here's kind of a compound one. We got Winingwebe. That ngwe is talking about your head or your face. That gwe, that NGWE part. That be, though, is indicating sitting. And then the ween is talking about being dirty. So it's sitting there with a dirty face. Winingwebe. But that part, that ngwe part, you see that inside of words that mean things like you could say zawingwe. It's talking about like blonde hair, like their hair is blonde, so it's like the face or the head in a way, that ngwe. But again, it's like you start to see these and recognize these parts inside of words. And again, you can hear words you've never heard in your life, because I always like to say to people, like we've got a Potawatomi dictionary. It's got like 10,000 words in it, but honestly, that 10,000 words could easily be 100,000 if we just kind of sat around and just start chopping parts apart and making a new word. But a lot of times what a speaker does is they really understand these parts of the word. And so they're able to then just kind of go with that in that moment and be like, oh, da 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 da. I mean, yeah, there's baseline kind of type words that you want to know, like just verb to clean, things like that. But understanding that, you can again hear words you've never heard in your life, and they can make perfect sense to you by understanding some of these parts. So okay, moving on. I'm staying too long in one area. Winchige, beanchige, he or she cleans, beanchige. Winchige, he or she dirties something up, winchige. That chige is kind of like an action, like something's being done, chige. Like nijeshchige, what are you doing? Or zhechge, you're doing something. That beanchige, you're cleaning, you're doing something clean, you're cleaning up, beanchige. Winchige, you're doing something dirty, you're dirtying something up, winchige. Beanze, he or she is clean. Winze, he or she is dirty. When you see that ze, or sometimes at the end of a word, that usually indicates like a state of being. It's something that's happening to a person. For example, zagze, he or she is scared. Zagze. Bamadze, he or she is alive. That's ze. Tagze, he or she is sad. It's kind of like a state of being, or a state of existence in a way. Binze, he or she is clean. Winze, he or she is dirty. Bindon, clean it up, or to clean something up. Bindon. Windon, to dirty something up. Windon. Now, if I wanted to say, I'm going to clean it up with my hands, I could say, Nui bin badon. I'm going to clean it with my hands. Nui bin badon. Again, that B as part of that would indicate you're doing it with your hands, bin badon. If I wanted to say I was going to clean something with my my feet, I don't know if I'm going to like attach mops or like little sponges to my feet and start running around the house or something, but I could say Nui binshkan. I'm going to clean it with my feet or my body. Nui binshkan. Windon, going to dirty something up. Windon. But so when you see that ween, you start to see it inside of other words like winnage. Winnage is a vulture. Well, if you know the history of that word, that bird, a long time ago used to be a very beautiful bird and had a beautiful feathers that was on his head, but he was very arrogant. He thought too highly of himself. And Nana Bojo was talking to him one day, and I don't want to tell this entire story because it is kind of it's semi winter, but not quite type winter story. But so I'll just give you kind of the gist of it. Basically, he got mad and he punished him, and he ended up getting his head stuck in like a rotted carcass, and so all his feathers fell off his head. So he has this nasty kind of ugly, dirty feathers. And now today, whenever you see a vulture or a buzzard, they're always digging around like in carcasses, that weenage. But so you start to see those words inside of other things, once you really understand parts of them like that. That's just one that just popped out of my head real quick. So, but a little more about this zay, this kind of state of being. Nagwaze again was to look a certain way. So zagze, he or she is scared. Zagze. Chio nagwaze, he or she is homely. Chio nagwaze. Again, that nagwaze is to look a certain way. Tagze, he or she is sad. Tagze. Kebadze, he or she is foolish or bad. Kebadze. This is one that a lot of times we'll use when we're talking about like our kids, like if your kid's misbehaving, you might be like, gago kebadze kek. Don't you all be acting foolish. Don't be bad. Gago kebadze kek. Dadokmaben, behave. Dadokmaben. So kebadze is kind of acting foolish or bad. Kind of depends, I guess, the individual in a way. I mean, if you're talking to an adult, you're probably using it more in a foolish sense, I would think. Because they should know better. I mean, with kids, it's bad in the sense because they don't really understand that it's not okay to act in certain ways. But as an adult, most adults know. Not all adults, but kebadze, acting foolish or acting bad. Kebadze. Menopmadze. Menopmadze. He or she is living well. Menopmadze. Now, we can take this all apart too. We got meno. Meno indicates something good. Okay. That bama part, that bame means to kind of like go by. It's like you're going by. That odd is like talking about life, something living. That zay is that state of being. So it's literally going about in a good way, living in a good way, in that state of good being in a good state of being in a way. So there's all of that information inside that word, menopmadze. So when we say menopmadzewin, we put that win on it, we're changing it into like a noun or more of a concept, menopmadzewin, good health or good life, menopmadzewin. When we're talking about that, we're talking about going about living in this good state of being, this good way, menopmadzewin. And when we talk about menopmadzewin, we're also talking in a different way than we are in English. In English, when somebody says good health, I mean, they're probably just talking about like, I don't know, they're not sick, they're in good health in like a physical way. But really, when we're talking about menopmadzewin from a Anishinaabe, nadzewin from a Anishinaabe perspective, we're really talking about kind of being engaged and really knowing your culture, knowing your language, knowing your traditional ways, going to ceremony, living in that good way, that good life, that our ancestors taught us, that they passed on to us, and really carrying those things forward. I mean, it means all of that in a nutshell. And so that's why sometimes when it comes to like literally talking about a word or putting a word in a dictionary, sometimes it loses a little bit of its deeper essence, because if you don't understand kind of the parts and what's going on and the deeper understanding behind a word, like menopmadzewin, to live in a good way. Menze, he or she is embarrassed. Menze. And then again, bamadze by itself is just going about living, bamadze. And the way that we talk about like traveling, we say pabmadze. So pa has to do with going here and there, kind of like here about. So it's like living about, basically, is what the word for traveling is, pabmadze. Because, I mean, really, if you think about traditionally in the past, when we were traveling, it's not like today where we're like, oh, I want to go to Paris, or I want to go see Hollywood or whatever. Our ancestors were traveling for a purpose. They really were living about. They were living here, they were living there, they were going maybe to a summer camp, or perhaps to a winter campground where they didn't deplete all the resources that were around them. So when they were talking about traveling, again, we say traveling, we say pabmadze, to live about, pabmadze. Kionadze. Kionadze. Here she is crazy. Kionadze. And we can look at that word, that ze again is that state of being, state of being, it's state of existence. And that odd is again talking about life, life. Now, when you have that in front of there, that in is indicating doing it in a certain way. So it's like living in a certain way. And that kyo is kind of like circular, like kyota. That's kyota gijik, kind of it's like circular sky. It's talking about things in a circular motion. So it's kind of like living one's life in a certain way, kind of like that. Just kind of crazy, just all over the place. You're kind of just spinning around like, I don't know, do that, like that. Just living your life in a crazy way. Just not, there's no purpose, no rhyme, no reason. You're just kind of spinning around. That's what that kionadze is talking about when you say crazy, kionadze. And again, that nadze by itself is when you put the in on there, you're saying living life in a certain way, that nadze. So if I said, like, for example, Nishnabe Nadzuin, that Nishnabe way of life, that Nishnabe philosophy, that way of living, that Nishnabe way, Nishnabe Nadzuin. So I got to keep going, though. I keep rambling too much. I apologize. As I'm going along on these, please don't hesitate to ask questions. If you have questions or thoughts, or perhaps even deeper realizations of some of this when you hear it. I mean, it might trigger you to think of something else, and please don't hesitate to feel like you can definitely share that or ask questions about it. I mean, if I have the answer, I will share it with you. So if I don't, I'll just tell you I don't have the answer. So Indum is a lot of times words that have that indum in them are talking about thinking or feeling in a certain way. Nindum is to think. Nindum. Windum is like to feel. Gisa nindum is to feel sad. Gisa nindum. So you're thinking, your thoughts are sad. They're kind of downward. Gisa nindum, sad. Menonindum, good thoughts or good feelings. Menonindum. Wiskendum. So you're hurting in your mind. Maybe you're struggling. You're having a hard time in your life. Maybe you're struggling with addiction. Wiskendum. You're having a lot of struggles, inner turmoil. Wiskendum. Menowindum is another way to say happy. Menowindum, good feeling, good ways of thinking. Menowindum. Mamkadindum. Amazed, but like again, you're talking very literally about amazed inside your mind versus not necessarily amazed by what you see. And that's where that specifics of the language comes into play. In English, we just say, oh, I'm amazed. Well, what are you amazed by? You're amazed because this is a new way of thinking about something, or you're amazed at the way this looks, or you're amazed by what you're hearing. I mean, but in our language, you can get very, very specific and be like, hey, I'm amazed to think in this way, or to feel in this way, or I'm amazed to take this in with my sight, or amazed to hear something so amazing. There's something so amazing to hear. So we can talk about things like that in a very specific way. Mamka dindum. He or she is amazed in the way that they're thinking about something. Another one that comes to mind is Nagdawindam. Nagdawindam is like deeply thinking about something. Nagdawindam. So maybe like contemplating it, or really, really thinking about it. So when you hear words that end in like that, indum or nindum, or some variation of that, there's a good chance that what you're talking about, even again, if you had never heard that word before, is it has something to do with inner thoughts or feelings, that nindum, that indum. So ob, having to do with sight or seeing. Ob. Now you have to realize some of these may have crossovers. They may have other things that, and if you look at them in a bigger perspective, they may have even more information inside of them. Just like abe can indicate like something that's male of the species. For example, I could say like yabe is a buck. It's a male deer, yabe. But if I wanted to say like a rooster, it's nabe. Nabe si is a rooster. Or if I wanted to say, mankind, when we say our word Nishnabé, kind of like it asks that question, Nishnabé, why place man down? Is the way I understand that. If you go back to the original word, that nis being downward, nabe being man or mankind in that sense. Why place man down? Anishinaabe, Nishnaabe. Wabma is to see someone. Wabma. Then this is the basic word. This is the word that people use 9 times out of 10 when they're talking about seeing something. Your average second language learner is going to use wabma. And it's definitely one you want to know. You want to know this verb, wabma. But again, you can get more specific. You can say like abnabi is to turn and look back, abnabi. And this is actually a famous Potawatomi chief that had this name, abnabi. Means to turn and look back, abnabe. That knob indicates to look in a certain way, just like that nadze was to live in a certain way. That in on the front of there means that you're looking in a certain way. So nabdan, you're looking at something, maybe you're examining it, maybe you're really kind of checking it out real closely, kind of like, oh, okay. Nabdan, looking at it in a particular way. Nabdan. Dapabma, he or she peeps in. Dapabma. So here you're peeping in on somebody. Maybe you're looking at somebody through an opening of a window, or you're looking at somebody, I don't know, inside of a building or something. Dapabma, dapabdan, you're peeping through, you're looking through at somebody. Maybe you're looking through a hole or like a window again. Dapabdan, you could be peering even through like a telescope or something like that. Dapabdan. Minowabma is to see somebody in a good way or see somebody well. So this could mean a little bit of both. It could mean that you have good vision of somebody, like you can really see them, minowabma, but it could also indicate like looking at them in a good way, like you're thinking good for them. You're thinking when you see them, like you're kind of hopeful of good things. Minowabma. Ndowabma, you're trying to see someone or you're searching for someone. Ndowabma, you're trying to see them or you're trying to find them. Ndowabma. And then do can be attached to other things to indicate you're trying to do something or you're wanting to do something. The word nedwindan, a lot of times we use that word when we say like, I want it. Nedwindan, I want it, so I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to acquire it. But the verb itself is ndowindan. You're trying to get something. You want to have it. You want it. Ndowabma, you're trying to see someone. So maybe you're searching for somebody, or maybe you're looking for like your grandma, or you're looking for your dad or something like that. Ndowabma. But it also, keep in mind, it doesn't always have to be people. I mean, it could be an animal you're looking for. It could also be something that's sacred in nature. Maybe you've misplaced something. You're trying to find, I don't know, maybe you misplaced your pipe and you're like trying to find your pipe. You put it on a shelf back here in the back, or you put it in your trunk, but you can't remember exactly where you put it. You're trying to find it, Dowabma. Bonabi is to stop looking. Bonabi. That bone can indicate stopping of something. Bone. And if you think about the word like babon, winter, babon, you could look at that word in a couple different ways. You could think to yourself, babon, it's like that time where stuff is, it's stopping growing. It's kind of still. The spirits are asleep. There's that covering of snow on the ground that's covering over everything, and everything's kind of going to sleep. The earth is asleep. The spirits are asleep in the winter, that babon. But you could also look at babon a little bit and think of about the word like mbo. Mbo is death, but it's really, if you think about it, it's a time of stopping. Stopping is a transition from this plane of existence to another. You're no longer part of this existence. You've stopped your moment in time that's here. So mbo, but bone, to stop. Bonabi, to stop looking. Bonabi. Be. When you see be at the end of a word, it's usually indicating something to do with sitting. Jeep to be is how we say sit in Potawatomi. Jeep to be. Manobe, though, is to like sit comfortably. Gwek be would be like to turn while sitting. Be like, oh, Yeah, nah. My bad. I tried to flip around my chair and I knocked my camera off. So I am having a hard time with my camera. But gwekbe, it's like turn while sitting. Gwekbe could be doing something like that. Now it doesn't have to. I also could have said beam skolbe, like spinning around while sitting, since I'm in a chair that spins. But if you were like sitting on the ground and you just like turned gwekbe to turn while sitting. Wewebe, wewebe. Here she sways back and forth while sitting, maybe like wewebe, wewebe, to sway back and forth while sitting. Weweb is talking about like this kind of motion. So like if you say like wewebzo is like to swing. So like you're swinging in a swing, maybe a child or a person's maybe on a swing set. Wewebzoen is a swing set, but also it's just indicating this right here. If I said like weweb ashi, it's kind of blowing back and forth in the wind. Weweb ashi. That ashi is indicating that wind's making it happen. Weweb on met, that wind is just kind of going back and forth. You can and then also weweb though can even indicate something like a dog. Like if your dog's tail is kind of going back and forth, it's just kind of wagging its tail. Wewebzo. So again, it's very descriptive in nature, a lot of our words. And a lot of our words can have multiple meanings, just like in English, where things can have multiple meanings because they're descriptive, and a lot of it's contextual, in that moment. If you're sitting there and your dog's tail's wagging all over the place and you were talking about webs though, and nobody's on a swing or something like that, it's obvious that you're talking about that tail. Or if you're at the swing set and you want to go to the swing, then it's obvious that you're talking about it from like this type of way. But maybe you're sitting there and the grass is just kind of going back and forth from that wind, then it's also obvious what you're talking about. That's that wewebe. Nshike, nshikaube, nshikaube. Here she sits alone. Nshikaube, nshikaube, and nshikaube. But this one makes you start thinking about things like mshike. Mshike is another word for, a word for turtle, just that general word for turtle, that mshike. But if you think about that mshike, he's kind of just there by himself. He's kind of alone. He's self-contained. He's got his little house that he can go inside of and kind of be there by himself. Mshike. But nishikaube, to sit alone, Shikaube. Niganbe, someone that sits out front or sits in the lead. This is actually a name in a family down this way. Niganbe, he sits out front. He sits in the lead. Niganbe. Nigan means, if you understand Nigan, you can understand a lot of stuff too, because Nigani by itself is to kind of like be in the lead or be a leader, Nigani. But if you say like Nigan Jiaguan, you're talking about like in the future. So it's out front. It's not happened yet. It's in the future. Nigan Jiaguan. So like sometimes when I pray, I'll say things like, Amamagosnan Winachana Gishpin Nigan Jiaguan Gorapinoje Dapnawat Anit Odajeshmon. As we head into the future, I hope that some of these children, they'll pick up some of this language and carry that forward, But that Nigan means out front or in the lead, Nigan. And when you talk about, it's another way you can describe a leader too. You can say Ogama, Wugama, you can say Ogama, but you can say like Nagan Juk for leaders too, the ones that are in the lead, Nagan Juk. So anyways. Achmo is to narrate or talk about something. We had that one word, binachmo, to talk about like apologize. And that's that achmo, you're narrating, you're talking about something in particular. Yachmo is just to tell something, just yachmo. Sometimes people just say achmo by itself, just to tell something. Bidachmo, to tell news, to bring news. That bead indicates that you're coming with something, you're bringing something. Bidige is the verb to go inside. You're entering, you're going in. So bidachmo, you're coming with this knowledge, you're coming with this news to share. Bidachmo. Gimo dachmo, to tell a secret. Gimo dachmo. Gimo indicates you're doing something kind of sneaky or something secretive, gimo. If I said like gimochke is the word for stealing. You're doing something sneaky and kind of undermine. You're stealing, gimochke. Or gimochke would be like a thief. But if you said like gimosabe, a lot of people they hear that word like the Lone Ranger, and they think that the Lone Ranger, that word kimosabe, they're always talking about that word. Oh, that word kimosabe, that means like friend or brother. No, it doesn't. The actual, what a lot of people don't realize is the original Lone Ranger, the one that was on the radio back in the 30s. There was actually a Potawatomi gentleman, I believe it was a Daniels guy from up towards Forest County, that was actually the original like Tonto. And Kimosabe means to scout or go out and take a quick look, kind of like a secretive type look. Kimosabe. That again, that ob indicates sight. Kimo, sneakily. So it's like you're sneakily looking out there. You're scouting something out. Kimosabe, gimosabe. So anyway, but or gimoskan. Gimoskan is to sneak up on somebody with your feet. Again, that shkan is your feet that's making that happen. Gimoshkan, you're sneaking up using your feet or your body to sneak up on somebody. Maybe you're crawling up on them. Maybe you're just kind of like in the I don't know, in the bush trying to sneak up on somebody. So Maji Yachmo, to go make a report. Maji Yachmo. Maji is an interesting one. It's the part Maji indicates like motion or movement, but a lot of times we use it for like leave. Like in Ojibwe, you may have heard Maja, but Maji, it can mean like it has a few different meanings. It can mean like to start, like something's starting to happen. In a sense, motion is starting to happen. Like if I say Machnoi, it's like motion. Things are in motion. If I said Machjoen, it could be two things. It could mean that the river is kind of flowing away, or it could be like it's starting to move, it's starting to flow. Machjoen. It indicates like motion. Things are in motion. So you're talking about things in motion. You're getting out the information. You're making that report. Maji Yachmo. Zamachmo, what I'm doing right now probably. Zamachmo, she talks too much. Zamachmo. There's another one you can say for this. You can say Zamdone. It means like big mouth. Zamdone. His mouth is just constantly just too much mouth. Zamdone. So maybe if you have a friend or relative that you want to give a little hard time to, perhaps you could tell them, hey, yeah, Zamdone. Your mouth is just Zamdone. I get that way sometimes when I get on a tangent. And sometimes when you start looking at some of these words, like you almost can't help yourself, but it draws you into making you think about other words and phrases. And you're like, oh, well, like the vulture, or like this or that. And you're like, oh, yeah. And you can't even, just like I said, just naturally takes your mind in different locations like that, because there's so much information again inside of our words. Yeah. Zamdon. Apne, when you see that in a word, inside of the word, it's usually talking about a certain type of sickness. Napne is like an illness, something in particular, usually something serious. Napne. So if you said napne, it'd be like a certain type of illness. Napne. Gondag napne, he or she has a throat illness. Maybe they have throat cancer, because dagen is your throat. Gondag napne, a throat illness. I don't know why that didn't look right, illness, in the English language, the way I wrote it. I don't know if I just misspelled that, or sometimes you start looking at the stuff too much and you start in Potawatomi, you start seeing the word in English. You're like, is that spelled right in English? Illness? I don't know. It looks weird. Kwewapne, he or she is woman sick. Kwewapne. Maybe you're somebody who's always chasing after some girls or something. Kwewapne. You could be the flip side of that. Nene wapne, he or she is boy crazy or man crazy. Nene wapne. Ween napne is like a VD. So again, yours your ween, which means dirty. So it literally is saying like a dirty sickness. Ween napne. Some kind of VD. I don't know why I wrote that there. Winapne. Again, I pause it just like your mind goes in these different places. Winapne. But again, the apne is the essence of sickness, some kind of sickness. And so, for example, you could say like denapne, like heart disease, denapne. You could talk about like conapne would be like arthritis. Con is like your bones, so like a bone sickness could be like conapne. Um, but you could just describe different ailments and how they affect you and the parts of your body that they really affect, and use that apne to describe them like that. So, but again, you could hear a word that you've never heard before, and maybe you've never heard the word for heart disease or arthritis or something like that. But by understanding what that apne indicates, that it's talking about like a certain type of sickness, and then maybe recognizing the body part that they mentioned. Okay, you recognize bone, or you recognize brain, and so you're like, okay, you can kind of put it together like, oh, it's a brain disease or brain illness, or it's a throat illness or a throat disease. And you can kind of figure it out that way by understanding that apne. Let's see here. De, I think I talked about this earlier. Actually, de is your heart. De wagon is a drum. That de way is that sound of that drum. De way. De way again. That gun at the end means a thing, so it's a thing that sounds like your heart. Jidea is a way of talking about thinking, but it's like a heartfelt thought. Jidea. And that je kind of indicates in a certain direction in a way, or in a certain way. It's very similar to like that in at the front, meaning like a certain way, like nadze when being a certain way of living. But that zhe a lot of times indicates like kind of in a certain way. That je, like jinkazo, he's called a certain thing. Jagdea, he or she is cowardly. Jag indicates like timid, or kind of not timid's the best way to say it, timid. But if you said like jagze, he or she is timid, jagze. But jagdea, he or she is cowardly, jagdea. Minodea, he or she is good-hearted, minodea. Again, you understand that mino is good, that day is your heart, that is indicating someone animate, something living is in a certain way. So you could say like, oh, minode a okwe, that woman is very good-hearted. Or minode a o kekyat, that old man, that elder is good-hearted. Minode a. But mino, I mean, you see that on so many different words. You can say mino gijge, it's a beautiful day or a nice day. Mino zhitske, when it's a good thing that was done. Mino kikdo, it was a good talk. Mino kedon, a good word or a good phrase. You can use that mino in so many different ways. Let's see. Even if you think about menomen, that good seed, that good berry, that good seed, menomen. And you start to see those words inside of other words that you never really thought about sometimes, the more you look at these words on a deeper level. Okay. Why, I am talking away. This part of this may end up falling into another class if it's something you guys find interesting. If not, we can get out of that. But you'll just have to let me know if you guys find this kind of stuff, talking about literal words. Myself, I think it's really fascinating. I think when you start delving into the deeper meaning behind words, it really does open things up in a way that maybe never did before. But not everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. So if, like I said, folks like it, we can do some more of this stuff going forward. I think it's pretty fascinating and pretty interesting. But we'll keep it diverse. We'll do a little bit of this and a little of that. We won't just do that. We'll also get back into some different category type words and things like that, and also make sure that we're going back over some of the material we've covered before, so that we're reinforcing it, making sure that it's sticking in your minds and stuff like that. So Zog indicates something outside. Zagyepto, to run outside. Zagyepto. Zagdonation, to stick one's mouth out while lying. So this is not a word you're going to hear very often, but if you heard it, you would recognize it because you'd know that zog indicates kind of out, outside. Don is your mouth, so zagdone. Shin is to lie down, like we were talking before. It can be lie or fall. That shin, zagdone shin. Zagajawebna, to throw something out. Zagajawebna, literally something animate. So I remember this. I think this one I heard somebody say, like, you could use for like to throw out your partner. Maybe they were cheating or something. You got rid of them. You tossed them out like an old sock. Zagajawebna. Zagajawebna. But to toss somebody out, or maybe they're just misbehaving. It's time to get rid of them. They need to leave. They need to get out of the meeting. You know, we zagajawebna o lamaza. I'm gonna toss that person out. Throw them out like an old sock. Zagajawebnan, to throw something out. Now, this is the word that I use all the time at my house. And sometimes I say this word a little too fast. And my wife was telling me one time, because I say this to the kids all the time, and she'd tell me I say it too fast. I would say, Zagajawebnan, Zagajawebnan, throw it away. Zagajawebnan, Zagajawebnan, throw that away. Zagajawebnan. She's like, I've been listening to you say that. I have no idea what you've been saying. And I was like, I realized I said it too fast for her. And I was like, Zagajawebnan. And when you say the nin part, it's command form. Zagajawebnan, Zagajawebnan, Zagajawebnan. Throw it away. Zagajawebnan. That's how it is with a lot of our words. You know, the more you say these sounds and get used to and accustomed to pronouncing these words, that's why it's important, hopefully, that you guys are doing that for yourselves right there as we're doing this as well. Maybe trying to say some of these words out loud, because it'll help kind of get your tongue accustomed to saying some of these words, because they are a little bit hard to pronounce sometimes when you first hear them. But after you've said them 150 times, they're easy. And I say throw it away a lot. I'm always telling, and that's something that I would highly recommend you do, is find things that you naturally use all the time in English and find out how to say them in our language and stop saying them in English. You know, I understand that when you're out in public, that may not be an option, or at work, if you can't do that, maybe at work. We don't all work in language programs, but when you're at your own house, just stop using, just say Zagajawebnan, throw it out, Zagajawebnan, or Bioe snin, come eat, Bioe snuck, everybody come eat. If you get used to saying that, once you said that word, 30, 40, 50, 60 times, it's just like bam, bam, bam. And it just becomes so much easier. So I think we're going to try one more. Or we still got to finish these zog. We're going to get into one more before we stop for a day. I think that'll be kind of interesting. Zagajase, to go outside. Zagajase. Zagjadon, take it outside. Zagjuin is water flowing out. Zagjuin. So maybe it's flowing out of the wall. That'd be bad. Or it's flowing. That's the first thing that comes to mind, like water flowing out of your wall. Zagjuin and Zagjuin, water flowing out. That Jawin is talking about the movement of water. That Jawin. And that's the one I want to talk about next before we finish up. That Jawin. Zagajanindam, outward thought or feeling. Zagajanindam. Again, that nindam is that thought or feeling, that thinking, that indam, that nindam. So Zagajanindam. So it's like basically kind of like being out with what you're thinking, kind of having almost like wearing your heart, you're wearing your thoughts on your sleeve, kind of like it's just basically like it's known. You're very open about how you think about things, like very outspoken. Zagajanindam, outspoken, really speaking your mind. It's your thoughts are out there. People basically, they don't have to second guess you. They know that's what you think because you tell them all the time. Real outward about your thoughts, not real closed down so about it. Zagajanindam. But the last one I want to try to cover here before we stop today is Jawin. Jawin is the movement of water, and there are so many cool words and phrases that you can talk about water moving using that Jawin. Mok has to do with something kind of emerging or coming out. So it's bubbling water. It's kind of like it's bubbling up out of the ground. Mok Jawin, Mok Jawin. But if you say like mokse o gizis, could be like the sun has come out. It's become visible. It's just suddenly come about. It's appeared. Mokse. Gwekjuan is a river turned direction. Gwekjuan. Like they were talking, I think I read this in history class one time about the earthquake that happened down here in Missouri in like the 1840s or 1850s. It actually caused the Missouri River to turn direction for like 3 or 4 days and run a different direction. So a river turned direction, Gwekjuan. Maybe the water is flowing one way and then it hits a certain area and then it starts going back in a different direction. It turns directions. Or maybe this would be something that maybe was man-made, or maybe a Gabengen, a dam or something that maybe a beaver made that caused the river to kind of change direction. Gwekjuan. So a river or water flowing in turning directions. Gwekjuan. Sinachuan. And there's several words for rapids in the language. This one is very descriptive. This is actually talking about kind of those white caps. What it's talking about is how water flowing over rocks. Sin is a rock. So Sinachuan would be like water flowing over rocks. And when water flows over rocks kind of fast, you see those white caps kind of splurt up, and you can say, oh, that's obviously Rapids Head. You see the white caps, if you will. Sinachuan. So water flowing over rocks. Sinachuan. And that's actually an old name in some families down this way. Sinachuan. Wowyejuan is like swirling water, or kind of an eddy, I think is another English word for that. So Wowyejuan, it's water, swirling water. Wowyejuan, maybe a whirlpool or an eddy, where the water kind of hits that edge of an area and it kind of swirls around. Wowyejuan. But Wowyeya means it's circular. Wowyeya. Wowyasto is how we say a tornado. Wowyasto. It's moving in that circular direction. Wowyasto. Wowye debukgeezus. Or Wowye geezus is another way to say, like a full moon. Wowye geezus, a circular moon, a full moon. Wowye geezus. Wasjuan is light shining off the water. That was is light. If I said like waskone, it's shining. Waskoninjigen is a light or a lamp. Waskoninjigen. Waskoninjigas would be like a small lamp, a small light, or maybe like a flashlight. But that was indicating light. So it's water it's like water flowing by and it's kind of shimmering off that water. It's reflecting off of it. That wasjuan, light shining off the water. Wasjuan. Maybe kind of that moonlight coming down on water or something like that. It's kind of how I imagine that. Wasjuan. So we're going to stop with that today. I did have a few more slides and I could talk about this stuff quite a bit. I think it's pretty interesting stuff. And then you can get into individual, like these are mostly verbs that we talked about today. But again, you can just take and look at like whole groupings of words and see those parts in there. Like, oh man, I never thought about that or never saw that. And you just start to kind of internalize those parts. And then again, you can hear a word or see it written and you've never seen the word in your life, but you're like, oh, that Joanne, it just makes sense. And it allows you to be able to also kind of, speak in a very precise, exact way when you understand those parts like that. And it allows you to almost be able to ad lib a little bit. So when you're talking about something, and maybe it's something that you don't really normally talk about, but you're able to describe it because you understand how those parts work, and you can just kind of, so. Miigwech, I hope you all enjoyed that. Like I said, it looked like y'all were having a good time, I think.
Miigwech. Yeah, no, I was wondering, do you have any worksheets of what we've gone over to maybe so that Carrie Ann could get them to us, or?
Yes, what I can do is I can definitely print out the PowerPoints that we went over and send them as a file. Would that be helpful?
Oh, that would be so amazing.
Okay, yeah, I should have thought about doing that before. I apologize. Because I have all the PowerPoints that we've done, and I can send all the PowerPoints. and maybe make some worksheets up too with some of that stuff as well.
I've taken screenshots of everything you've done since you've started, so I have all of that, but it's just
I'm sorry
so
about that.
many.
That would be a lot easier than doing screenshots. I apologize. I should have thought of doing that a long time ago. That's my fault, but I can definitely send you all the PowerPoints that we've done. The other thing I need to do too is I need to get the last. I can't remember the last one I put up online too. I need to put a couple more of those up online and get some of the video recordings too, so we can have a link to those for folks that want to go back and check it out again. But let me try to get all the PowerPoints together, and I'll send those over to